In a country of superlative cities, it is hard to imagine a Spanish city more incredible, more beautiful, better preserved, and full of surprises than our destination today. Join us on our trip to Toledo, a World Heritage City and one of our great Spanish passions. Here begins a complete guide to Toledo. First, we'll present you with an extensive list of the city's must-see attractions. We'll talk about the essential tourist wristband, which will help you save quite a few euros. We'll discuss how much time to spend in Toledo, share a basic guide to accommodation in the city. We'll talk about some of our favorite places to eat and drink in the city. We'll tell you what the typical local souvenirs are, and we'll finish by explaining how to get to Toledo. Hola, ¿qué tal? Hello, I am Tony Galvez from Road Trip Spain and Portugal and Travel Guide Spain and Portugal, where we help you plan the perfect trip with practical information, insider tips, and our very own travel guides. Let's start with the must-see places in Toledo in alphabetical order. Competing with the cathedral in terms of magnificence, the Alcázar of Toledo is the most prominent presence in the city's skyline. In addition to its sheer size, it helps that it stands on the highest point in Toledo. Emperor Charles V, Charles I of Spain, had it built as his residence. The palace was built on the site of an ancient medieval castle, of which only a section of wall remains, which can be seen walking around the building. However, the palace was never a royal residence. Shortly before its completion, the Spanish court moved to Madrid. Over the centuries, the Alcázar has had several uses. It has been a prison, barracks, an artisan's workshop, and the headquarters of the Infantry Academy. It suffered several fires and was almost completely destroyed during the Spanish Civil War. Its reconstruction was completed in 1960. The Alcázar is currently occupied by two very different institutions. The first, a tenant of the Alcázar since 2010, is the Museo del Ejército, the Army Museum. The museum occupies part of the Alcázar building and also some modern facilities next to the north facade of the building. The entrance to the museum is through the north facade as well. Is the museum worth a visit? We think so. Not so much for the contents on display, which may be of interest to those who like this type of museum, but for the container, for the fact that it allows you to see the magnificent building from the inside. Starting with the archaeological remains of the Alcázar, including the Islamic wall. Its remains can be seen because they were preserved inside the new building. Continuing with the magnificent north facade, with its gigantic imperial coat of arms, a facade work of the architect Alonso de Covarrubias, and finishing with the beautiful rectangular interior courtyard, with a classical air and a statue of Charles V in the center. If you are interested in visiting the Army Museum, check the opening times, as it tends to close early, making it very difficult to include it in a visit to the city for those making a day trip from Madrid. All the more reason to sleep in Toledo, as we'll talk about later. In the first comment below the video, you will find links to all the places mentioned throughout the video, where you can check prices when relevant and opening hours. The second institution, tenant of the Alcázar since 1998, is the Biblioteca de Castilla-La Mancha, the Library of Castilla-La Mancha, which occupies the top floor of the Alcázar on the south facade of the building on the other end of the Army Museum. At a time when tourist activity seems to be running over the rights of the residents of many Spanish cities like a steamroller, we would never mention in a video with tourist information an institution that has a very specific function, such as a library. But it turns out that it is the library itself that invites visitors to get to know it, and has even created a tourist route through its interior. And the main reason for visiting the library is its extraordinary views. Due to its location at the highest point in Toledo, it offers panoramic views of the city and its surroundings from its numerous windows and vantage points. It is difficult to say which view is more beautiful. Views of the city of Toledo and also views of the inner courtyard of the Alcázar, which can be seen from the upper terrace accessed from within the library. Want more reasons to visit the library? It is open till late, admission is free, and there is also a very small cafe with very cheap prices for a quick break. In the heart of Toledo, rising majestically among the low buildings of the historic center, stands an unmistakable silhouette that rivals the Alcázar in historic importance, the Cathedral of Saint Mary, Cathedral de Santa Maria, also known as the Primate Cathedral of Spain. It is one of Spain's great Gothic cathedrals, but as it took more than 2.5 centuries to complete, it inevitably blends several architectural styles. It was built over the Great Mosque of Toledo, which in turn had been built over a Visigothic church. It is considered the most important cathedral in the country due to its history and the fact that the most important Catholic prelates have always lived in Toledo. The city was also the capital of the Catholic faith in Spain. Despite its wealth and splendor on the outside, the visitor is hardly prepared for the succession of wonders that can be seen inside the cathedral, of which we will only show a small selection here. The altarpiece of the main chapel consists of 5 sections with scenes from the New Testament and life-size gilded and polychrome wood carvings. It was commissioned by Cardinal Cisneros and made by artists for Burgundy, Flanders and Spain. It was also Cardinal Cisneros who ordered the construction of the chapter house, with a marvelous coffered ceiling and paintings on the walls depicting scenes from the life of the Virgin and Christ and portraits of the first archbishops of Toledo. The transparent is an architectural work carried out in the 18th century. An opening was made in the wall through which light enters the upper part of the apse. The light that enters from outside the church ends up illuminating the tabernacle. The sacristy is a fairly large part of the church made up of several rooms that form a true art gallery, with paintings by artists such as Goya, Zurbarán, Rubens, Caravaggio and El Greco. The cloister is one of the largest spaces in the cathedral. As there was never an order of monks in the cathedral, the cloister was used for storage, as a classroom, as a place for commercial transactions and even for municipal meetings. These were some of the highlights of the cathedral, but believe us, there are many more amazing places inside. There is a fee to visit the cathedral, and the entrance ticket includes an audio guide. These tickets can be purchased online or at the cathedral shop, located in front of one of the side facades of the cathedral. If you are interested in art, be warned that the visit takes time, and 2 hours inside the cathedral will pass quickly. In the so-called Cuevas de Hércules, Caves of Hercules, you will discover a museum space that presents the history of the place, which has had different uses throughout history. It was a cistern in Roman times, a Christian temple in Visigothic times, later a mosque, and then a Christian temple again. Access is free. The Jesuit church is also known as the Church of San Ildefonso because it stands on the house of Toledo's patron saint. It is the largest Baroque church in Toledo, and like the cathedral, it emerges over the rest of the buildings in the city. Its facade stands out with 2 side towers. Construction began in 1629 and it took 136 years to complete. The interior of the church is organized around a large central nave surrounded by small side chapels. You will be interested in entering the church because the entrance fee, in addition to visiting the interior of the temple, includes a climb up the towers. The climb is done on foot up several staircases. The staircases are wide and well maintained, but it takes a minimum of fitness and breath to get to the top. You go up one tower and down the other. The effort of the climb is compensated by a spectacular panoramic view of the city of Toledo. If you don't have mobility problems, don't miss the views. Even if you are not very fit, you can make the climb at a leisurely pace. The Jesuit church is included in the Pulsera Turística, the tourist wristband, which we will talk about in the video. The Church of San Román is hidden away in a little visited area of Toledo. The church, now deconsecrated and declared a listed building, houses the Museum of Councils and Visigothic Culture, a Christian culture that developed in the 7th century. It is a fascinating 13th century Mudéjar church. The Mudéjars were Muslims who remained in the Iberian Peninsula after the end of the Reconquest and who created Christian works with a strongly Muslim-influenced artistic language. Originally, the bell tower was separated from the main church in the style of the Arab minarets. The fascinating interior of the old church combines Arab and Christian elements such as a horseshoe arch and a Renaissance dome. The museum's collection includes statues, illuminated manuscripts, and gold and silver treasures, as well as reproductions. The Church of Santo Tomé is a 12th century Mudéjar temple located in the Jewish quarter of Toledo. It is famous for housing El Greco's most famous painting, The Burial of the Lord of Orgaz, El Entierro del Señor de Orgaz. When we enter the sacristy of the cathedral, we mention the works of El Greco, Domenicos Theotokopoulos, an artist who was born in Greece, lived in Italy, and ended up settling in Toledo where he died. El Greco is today a very important symbol for Toledo, and his image and works can be seen in many corners of the city. The canvas depicts the burial of the benefactor of the church in the presence of Saint Augustine and Saint Stephen, who miraculously appear at the funeral to thank the deceased for the money donated to various religious institutions. Although the Count's funeral took place in the 14th century, El Greco painted the attendants in 16th century clothes and included portraits of people known to the painter. At that time, it was customary for his contemporaries to attend the funerals of eminent and noble men of the city. There is no record of the identity of the people portrayed in the painting, but third from the left is a self-portrait of El Greco himself. The Church of Santo Tomé is included in the tourist wristband. The Iglesia del Salvador, the Church of the Savior, was originally a mosque, so it faces southeast towards Mecca. On the right side of the interior nave of the church are a series of horseshoe arches resting on Roman columns. In recent years, the local authorities have carried out restoration and recovery work on the remains of the Mosque of the Savior. To see the recovered structural elements, one must pass through the ruins on the left side of the nave, through a vaulted space, and out into a courtyard. Another interesting element of the building is the old minaret, now a bell tower, which has been incorporated into the main church building and is no longer isolated from the rest of the church. It is possible to climb to the top of the tower, but the ascent, despite a renovated staircase, is a bit complicated and the limited views are not worth the effort. The Church of El Salvador is included in the tourist wristband. Toledo's Jewish legacy is very present in its Juderia, the Jewish quarter, one of the most important in Spain. It occupies an important part of Toledo's historic center, with its narrow streets full of surprises. The Jews inhabited the Toledo Jewish quarter until their expulsion from the Iberian Peninsula in 1492. The Jewish quarter had up to 10 synagogues. As a way of honoring the Jewish legacy in Toledo, Toledo, the local authorities have placed on the floor of the Jewish quarter several tiles with 3 different symbols: the word life in Hebrew, the 7-branched candelabrum, and the symbol of the network of Spanish Jewish quarters, which resembles a map of the Iberian Peninsula. In this list, we are still going to see other places with strong links with Toledo's Jewish past, such as the Synagogue of Santa Maria la Blanca and the Sinagoga del Tránsito. The small and unique 10th century Mezquita del Cristo de la Luz, the Mosque of the Christ of Light, today the Ermita del Cristo de la Luz, is the only surviving mosque of the 10 mosques that once stood in the city of Toledo, and is also the oldest monument in Toledo still standing. Built over a Visigothic church, the mosque is one of the oldest Muslim monuments in Spain. An Arabic inscription on the facade indicates that it was built by Musa ibn Ali in 999. It was converted into a church in the 12th century, a beautiful example of Mudéjar architecture. Despite its small size, the mosque was of great importance during the Muslim presence in the Iberian Peninsula. It was strategically located in a wealthy quarter of the city and close to the Alcázar, a lofty fortress that stood where the Alcázar of Toledo is today. It has a square floor plan, 9 meters wide and divided into 4 vaulted compartments. It is inspired by the Great Mosque of Córdoba, like a miniature copy, and the vaults are replicas of those in Córdoba. Next to the mosque is a small peaceful garden. It is worth strolling through it to contemplate the views of the northern wall and the Puerta del Sol from another perspective. The Cristo de la Luz is included in the tourist wristband. You have probably seen photos or videos with a wonderful view of Toledo with the city on top and the Tagus River surrounding it. It is a spectacular view that allows you to contemplate how the river becomes the natural boundary of the city and determines its shape and growth. A ring road runs completely around the historic center of Toledo, partly following the course of the river. Along this road, to the south of the river, there are several viewpoints with car parks and even information plaques that help to identify the city's main monuments. For those who like walking, the road is a very nice stroll and allows you to go around Toledo in about a couple of hours. But if you visit Toledo for a day, you will not have time to waste wandering around outside the city because there is so much to see inside. The truth is that most people who visit Toledo as a day trip from Madrid hardly get to see these wonderful views of the city from the viewpoints, which is a real pity. Here's our advice. There is an easy way to get to the viewpoints without sacrificing too much of your sightseeing time. If you arrive in Toledo by train or bus, get a taxi at the gate and ask the driver to take you to the center, but first stop at the viewpoints. The taxi driver will stop at the main viewpoints and give you time to take as many photos as you like. The cost of the journey will be the cost shown on the taximeter, and the longer you stay at each viewpoint, the more expensive it will be. But you can calculate that for around 20 to 25 euros per taxi, you can do the round trip. If you are traveling with more people, it is a great investment. You will not miss out on the most beautiful views of Toledo, and you will get to the city center easily. However, if the viewpoints are beautiful during the day, when night falls, they become a spectacle, with the city first bathed in the light of the sunset and then illuminated. For this reason, the viewpoints are very popular at the end of the day. Piece of advice / reward for those who sleep in Toledo. If you sleep in the city, you can get to the viewpoints at the end of the day by taking bus line 71, which leaves from the city center. You can catch it right in front of the entrance to the Army Museum at the foot of the Alcázar. Get off at the Hotel Cigarrales stop. If in doubt, ask the driver and walk 5 minutes to the viewpoints. Check the bus timetables to make sure you don't have to walk back into town. We have put a link in the first comment below the video with the bus information. You can buy the ticket from the driver. The Monastery of San Juan de los Reyes, Saint John of the Kings, is one of the most beautiful Gothic temples in Spain. The monastery was founded by the Catholic monarchs Ferdinand of Aragon and Isabella of Castile to commemorate their victory over the Portuguese at Toro in 1476. As the victory at Toro was so important, the kings designed the monastery to be their future mausoleum. But in 1492, with the conquest of Granada, they changed their minds and decided that the Andalusian city would be a better place for their eternal rest. Before entering the temple, look on the outer wall for the chains that belonged to the Christian prisoners freed in the battles against the Muslims, and which the Queen ordered to be placed there in 1494. The monastery is an example of Hispano-Flemish Gothic style. The church was completed in 1504 and is dedicated to Saint John the Evangelist. The church is in the form of a Latin cross with short arms and is distinguished by the large coats of arms of the Catholic monarchs held by eagles. The letters Y for Isabel and F for Fernando can also be seen. The splendid lower cloister was also completed in 1504. It has a small garden. The ceiling of the cloister is formed by ribbed vaults. The upper cloister, completed in 1526 and restored in the 19th century, contains mudéjar decoration, including a beautiful coffered ceiling. The coffered ceiling, known as artesonado, is an outstanding element of mudéjar architecture, consisting of wooden moldings with pictorial motifs. The phrase tanto monta, chosen by King Ferdinand to express that the means chosen to solve a problem do not matter as long as they lead to a solution, is present in the decoration. Shortly after its completion, the Catholic monarchs left the monastery in the care of Franciscan monks. During the invasion of Spain by Napoleon's troops, the monastery suffered serious damage. Later in the mid-19th century, it was abandoned and the building was finally restored after the Spanish Civil War, and the Franciscans reoccupied it in 1954. The monastery is included in the tourist wristband. Given the importance of the figure of the painter El Greco for the city, which we have already mentioned in the video, it should come as no surprise to find the El Greco Museum in Toledo. The House Museum, founded in 1910, occupies an early 20th century house with very pleasant gardens in the Jewish quarter of Toledo, very close to the house where El Greco lived. When the museum was founded, the idea was to recreate El Greco's house and his working space inside, although it is now known that El Greco did not actually live here. The main aim of the museum is to raise awareness and promote the figure of the painter, his work and his influence on other artists. The museum's collection includes some 20 works by Domenicos Theotokopoulos El Greco, among them the 13 paintings that form part of the valuable apostolate and the painting known as View and Plan of Toledo. There are also works by other artists. The El Greco Museum is a recommended visit for those staying overnight in Toledo who are interested in art or the work of El Greco. The Museum of Santa Cruz of the Holy Cross occupies the building of the former Hospital de Santa Cruz, an institution founded by Cardinal Mendoza. The hospital, an important work of the Spanish Renaissance, was built after his death in the 16th century. The museum's collections are displayed on its 2 floors and around the beautiful courtyard. It contains archaeological pieces, decorative arts, and paintings, including several works by El Greco. It also hosts temporary exhibitions. This is another museum for those who spend the night in Toledo and have plenty of time in the city. The Plaza de Zocodover Square, is one of the most important public spaces in Toledo and is something of a Plaza Mayor, its main square. Located next to the Alcázar, it is almost triangular in shape. Its name comes from Arabic and means Market of the Beasts, as this is where the market was held in the Middle Ages. During your visit to Toledo, you will inevitably pass through this square, which is especially lively at festive times throughout the year, such as Christmas. Crossing the Arco de la Sangre, the Arch of the Blood, in the same square, you will see a popular sculpture of Miguel de Cervantes, the author of Don Quixote. The Puente de Alcántara Bridge is one of the most beautiful historical constructions in Toledo and one of the most photographed. On this side there was a Roman bridge that was damaged and rebuilt in the 10th century. Under the reign of Alfonso X, it was damaged again and had to be rebuilt. During this reconstruction, the Great Tower was added, later modified during the reign of the Catholic monarchs. The coats of arms of the kings decorate the walls of the bridge. The tower on the other side of the river was in very poor condition, and in 1721 it was replaced by a triumphal arch in the Baroque style. The bridge was declared a national monument in 1921. In addition to the beauty of the bridge, the views it offers of Toledo and the Alcázar are sensational. The Bridge of San Martín is another beautiful bridge that spans the waters of the Tagus River. It is a 13th century construction that must have been inspired by the Alcántara Bridge. The tower, furthest from the center, dates from the 14th century. The bridge has been rebuilt several times throughout history. Right next to the bridge, there is a tourist zip line, which we do not quite understand how it fits into the context of a World Heritage Site such as the center of Toledo. The wall that defended the city of Toledo has been partially preserved, and today it can be crossed through several monumental gates. The most spectacular of these is the Puerta de Bisagra, the only surviving Arab gate from the medieval wall. Its name derives from the Muslim name Bab as-Sakra, or Gate of the Sagra. It was completely rebuilt during the reigns of Charles V and Philip II. On the facade is a gigantic imperial coat of arms of Toledo with a double-headed eagle, symbol of the Spanish monarchs of the House of Habsburg. The gateway is formed by two arches separated by an inner courtyard. In the courtyard is a sculpture of Emperor Charles I of Spain and V of Germany. Entering the historic center of Toledo through the Puerta de Bisagra, there is a second gate, the Puerta del Sol, which forms part of the fortified wall that surrounded the Muslim city of Toledo. It is a 14th century gate in the Mudéjar style with strong Nasrid influence. The Nasrids were the last Muslim dynasty in the Iberian Peninsula. In the 16th century, one of the facades was decorated with a scene depicting the sun and the moon, which is the origin of the door's current name. The Real Colegio de Doncellas Nobles, the Royal College of Noble Maidens, was a project of Cardinal Siliseo, who founded it in 1551 to provide Christian and human education to young girls without resources, a very advanced idea at the time. The support of King Philip II contributed to making it one of the best schools in Europe. The college chapel is Renaissance and Baroque in style. The highlight is the tomb of Cardinal Siliseo, a 19th century work in white and grey marble with extraordinary details. Until that century, the cardinal's remains were kept in a humble wooden box. The courtyard has 2 floors and was designed by the 18th century architect Ventura Rodriguez. From the courtyard you can access the noblest room in the college, the rector's room. The Real Colegio de Doncellas Nobles was open to the public in 2016 and is included in the Toledo Tourist Wristband. Founded in 2003, the Synagogue of Santa Maria la Blanca is almost 2 centuries older than the neighboring Synagogue of El Tránsito, which we will visit next. It is artistically and culturally unique. It was built during the Christian reign of Castile by Mudéjar architects, Muslims in Christian territory, to be used by Jews. It is considered a symbol of the cooperation that existed between the 3 dominant cultures in the Iberian Peninsula during the Middle Ages. The synagogue is considered an exceptional example of Mudéjar art in Toledo, showing a high degree of sophistication shown in the work of Muslim artists. The Islamic influence is very evident in the beautiful horseshoe arches. The interior of the synagogue is divided into 5 naves, separated by 4 rows of 7 horseshoe arches. each with elaborate mudéjar decoration. The beautiful stucco capitals stand out, decorated with ribbons, scrolls, and pine cones. The pine cone is a symbol associated with the unity of the people of Israel. The Synagogue of Santa Maria la Blanca is included in the tourist wristband. The Sinagoga del Tránsito, the Transit Synagogue, also known as the Samuel A. Levi Synagogue, currently houses the Museo Sephardi, the Sephardic Museum, dedicated to preserving the heritage of the Sephardic Jews, the Jewish population of the diaspora originating in Spain and Portugal. The museum was established in 1964 and occupies a beautiful synagogue, which is without doubt the jewel in the museum's crown. As in Santa Maria la Blanca, the austere exterior contrasts with the sumptuous decoration of the interior. It was commissioned by a court treasurer of King Pedro I of Castile as a private chapel for the palace he had ordered built on a large plot of land near the river. The synagogue, designed as an oratory for the palace with which it was communicated directly, it is the only surviving construction from the palace. The room's simple plan is similar to that of many chapels in Christian palaces and castles of the period. It is covered with a rich wooden ceiling inlaid with ivory and painted decoration. The museum's permanent exhibition presents the history of the Jews in Spain from their arrival in Roman times to the present day. The Pulsera Turística, Toledo's tourist wristband, is an excellent combined ticket that allows you to save money in the city. You buy the wristband, wear it on your wrist, and with it you can enter 7 of the city's monuments that we have already shown you in the video. They are the Church of the Jesuits, the Church of Santo Tomé, the Church of El Salvador, the San Juan de los Reyes Monastery, the Mosque of the Cristo de la Luz, the Royal College of Noble Ladies, and the Synagogue of Santa Maria la Blanca. From the first use of the wristband, and as long as you don't take it off, it will be valid for 7 days, allowing you to make a single visit to each of the monuments during that period of time. You can buy the wristband at the ticket offices of any of the monuments or at the Civitatis website, following the link we are going to leave in the description of the video, a good option for those who like to make their expenses before the trip begins. At the time of recording this video, but check the updated prices because they do change, the wristband costs 12 euros. The ticket for the 7 monuments, bought separately, would cost 28 euros. Just by visiting 4 monuments, you will have recouped your investment. We've seen the attractions, now it's time to talk about how much time to spend in Toledo. There are 2 indisputable facts. The first is that most people think of Toledo as a day trip from Madrid. And the second is that there are many fascinating places to visit in Toledo. And of course, too many places and too little time is a complicated combination. Ideally, you would dedicate 1 day, 1 night, and at least part of the next day to Toledo. That way you could explore Toledo at your leisure, discovering countless little corners that those who take a day trip don't get to see. Planning your visits without rushing, with time to enjoy yourself and also to take a break. Without that, I wish I had spent more time in the city feeling. For those staying overnight in Toledo, the big advantage comes at the end of the day, as well as being able to watch the sunset from the viewpoints, as we mentioned earlier in the video. When evening falls, most tourists return to Madrid and the city becomes a haven of tranquility, reserving for those who have decided to stay overnight the privilege of contemplating the city's beautiful monumental illumination. Hey Tony, hold on a second, does all this mean we are condemning the same day round trip that most people do? No, not necessarily. We maintain our preference for an overnight visit, but if you can only do Toledo as a day trip, it can work as long as you take these 3 steps. The first is to try to arrive in Toledo at around 9:30 in the morning so that you can start your visit at that time. The main monuments open their doors at 10 a.m. Book your return for the end of the day from 8 p.m. onwards. The second step is to be aware that you will not be able to visit all the places we have shown you, and you will have to make a selection of the places of interest you are going to visit. And the third step is to make sure you don't arrive in Toledo without having an idea of the route you are going to follow. Toledo is a city with so many narrow streets that it is not always easy to find your way around. If you leave it until the last minute to organize your visit, you are likely to waste valuable time that you don't have. And here's where we come to the rescue with our Toledo in one day, a self-guided walking tour we have created to help you optimize your time in the city. It is an electronic guide you can carry on your mobile smartphone along with an online map. The guide contains a full-day walking tour that covers 19 sites in the extraordinary Toledo. No need to rack your brains on how to visit Toledo, we've done that work for you. Uncovering the magnificent Toledo has never been so easy. Toledo in one day is part of our collection of walking tours dedicated to the most important cities in Spain and published through our Travel Guide Spain and Portugal brand. Whatever you choose, we advise you to avoid booking an organized tour to Toledo. Some tours spend half a day in the city, a lot of time in shops where the guides take commission and leave you looking frustrated. They are a real rip-off. For those of you who have decided to stay in Toledo, here's some basic advice. Preferably choose a hotel in the historic center. Staying in the city center has a clear advantage. Most of the tourist attractions are very close and you will be able to reach them on foot. You will not need to use public transport. As the historic center of Toledo is compact, if you choose the right location for your hotel, you will be able to walk almost everywhere. There are many hotels of all prices and sizes. If you find a hotel that suits you and you want to know our opinion, just ask. Let's take a look at food and drinks in Toledo. The name of the restaurant is revealing Museo de Productos de Castilla-La Mancha, Museum of Products of Castilla-La Mancha. With its location close to the Monastery of San Juan de los Reyes, it is inevitable that it has the profile of a tourist restaurant, but without negative connotations. It is a tourist restaurant from the old days. It offers a daily menu at a very good price with local specialities, a nice dining room and friendly waiters. With a higher price profile, we have eaten several times in the restaurant La Fábrica de Harinas, which is located inside the San Juan de los Reyes Hotel, near the Sinagoga del Tránsito. It also offers a daily menu with local flavors, but with a modern twist. Our favorite in Toledo is Abadia Brewery, both for the beers, which include home-brewed craft beers, and for the food at any time of the day. At lunchtime during the week, it serves a highly recommended set menu and a more expensive menu with local specialities. The underground rooms of the brewery are a sight to behold, not to mention the amazing toilets. It is a very popular place, so it's worth booking in advance. Very close to the cathedral, the Museo del Queso Manchego, the Museum of Manchego Cheese, is an interesting place run by a very attentive family, with a small museum on the production of a typical local product, Manchego cheese, and where you can enjoy a delicious cheese tasting paired with wine. As this is going to be a long video, we're not going to talk here about the typical specialities of the cuisine of La Mancha, the region to which Toledo belongs, but don't forget to ask in the restaurants for typical Toledo dishes. For lovers of sweets and sugar, Toledo is a paradise, as the nuns in several of the city's convents make sweets for sale to the public. You will see the signs as you walk around the city. To finish off the gastronomic section, let's talk about the star product of the local cuisine, a sweet of Arab origin which was already being eaten in the city in the 16th century, mathapan, marzipan. This sweet is made by mixing ground almonds, icing sugar and egg white. As it is almost entirely made of almonds, it has a unique flavor and aroma. The dough can be molded into different shapes, brushed with egg yolk, and baked quickly to turn golden brown. It is a compact sweet with a mild and delicious taste. Marzipan in Toledo is a true miniature work of art. Tiny and not so tiny as the gigantic marzipan sculpture of Don Quixote you see on the screen now. Marzipans are made in specialized bakeries which you will find all over the city, as well as in convents. Even if you're not going to buy anything, you should know what the most typical products of Toledo are. Apart from the aforementioned marzipan, the most famous, bulky and expensive souvenirs are the swords and knives made from Toledo's famous steel. From the most gigantic swords to the smallest knives, you will find an enormous variety of products in Toledo. A word of warning for anyone who buys a knife or sword, regardless of the size, and plans to return to Madrid by high-speed train. Knives and similar weapons are not allowed on the train, but an exception is made for those bought as souvenirs. In order for station security to let them through, you must indicate at the time of purchase that you intend to use the train to return to Madrid. The shop will wrap the knife so that you can travel with it on the train without any problems. Another very typical product of Toledo is damasquinado, damascening. This is a type of craft work consisting of pieces of steel decorated with gold, silver and copper wire. As its name suggests, Damascene came to Toledo from Damascus, the capital of Syria. When direct light falls on the objects, the shine of the gold contrasts with the black of the steel. The price of the objects depends on their size, complexity and the amount of gold or silver used in their production. The shop windows of Toledo's tourist shops are covered with different pieces of Damascene. To finish our guide to Toledo, let's see how to get there from Madrid. Toledo is about 70 kilometers south of Madrid. You can get there by car, by bus or by high-speed train. The first option is by car. You will take the A42 motorway and it will take you approximately 1 hour to get to Toledo, plus the time needed to leave Madrid. When you arrive in Toledo, you will have to look for a place to park your car, as car traffic in the center is restricted. Do not attempt to enter the center of Toledo by car. There are 2 free open-air uncovered car parks near the river. They may have empty spaces, they may be full. It's impossible to tell. If you are traveling with suitcases, prefer a paid car park such as the nearby Parking Miradero with direct access to the city center. If you go to Toledo by car, be sure to take the opportunity to drive around the viewpoints we mentioned earlier. The buses that connect Madrid and Toledo are operated by the company Alsa. They leave from the Plaza Elíptica bus station in Madrid, which is served by lines 6 and 11 of the Madrid Metro. Pay attention when buying the tickets. The journey time between Madrid and Toledo can change between 1 hour and 1 hour and 45 minutes depending on the bus. To make the most of your time in Toledo, try to buy your ticket for the bus that makes the journey in 1 hour non-stop. Buses arrive at the Estación de Autobuses de Toledo, the city's bus station. It is a modern building located outside the old town. Renfe, the Spanish railway company, uses an Avant high-speed train model for the route between Madrid and Toledo. Trains depart from Atocha station in Madrid. Atocha station is served by Metro Line 1. Trains to Toledo usually depart from the lower level of the high-speed train departures area. Pay attention because there are 2 levels to get on the high-speed trains. The journey takes 33 minutes. The trains arrive at Toledo station located outside the historic center. Take the opportunity to have a look around. The station building, inaugurated in 1919 in neo-Mudéjar style, is very beautiful and it is a listed building. Brick, stone, iron and concrete were used in its construction. The main lobby of the station is an example of typical Toledan craftsmanship, tile mosaics, lattice work and wrought iron lamps. The price of train tickets for the Madrid-Toledo route do not usually change, they are always the same. Even so, we recommend that you buy your tickets in advance because the number of seats is limited and everyone wants to go to Toledo in the morning and return in the evening. How do you get out of the train station and the bus station? At both stations you will find taxis outside waiting for passengers, but if you want to walk, follow our instructions. What many people do is to walk to the Puente de Alcántara, a 10-minute walk from the stations, where there is an endless flight of stairs leading up to the center of Toledo. But nobody deserves to start their day in Toledo by climbing stairs, especially when there is an alternative. Right next to the bridge, there is an escalator system that takes you effortlessly up to the Plaza de Zocodover in the center of Toledo. So enjoy a leisurely start to the day. The stairs also take you back to the bus or train station. Is there a better way to get to Toledo than the others? It depends on each case. We prefer the train, which in the case of a day trip allows you to make the most of your time, so that's the option we recommend. And with transport, we have reached the end of a video dedicated to a superlative city, Toledo. As always, if you have any questions about the subject of the video, take advantage of the commentary box to ask. We'll be happy to try to help you. Toledo is one of the sensational day trips you can do from Madrid. In the video you are seeing now on the screen, we show you the most important ones so that you can choose the ones that most appeal to you. We look forward to seeing you in this video.